Hello, this is Bruce Timm, producer.
I'm Andrea Romano. I'm the voice director.
James Tucker, and I directed this episode.
Glen Murakami, producer.
Will Friedle, I was the voice of Terry McGinnis and Batman.
And we're here to talk about Eggbaby. Several notable things about this episode. This was James's first episode as a director. What had happened was that we were doing our direct-to-video feature, Return of the Joker, at the same time, and so Kurt Gita left the series to go do the feature, and we needed to replace him with somebody, and James was one of our top storyboard guys, and he got the director gig.
And was happy to have it.
It was very happy to have it.
Very happy.
And has gone on to bigger and better things since. This was our Emmy-winning episode. This was our, specifically, you know, we have a little bit of a love-hate relationship with the Emmys because our shows are a little bit more adult than most other cartoons, and so we have a tendency to like not get nominated a lot. And for Batman Beyond, we said, okay, you know, we're going to submit like our corniest, most childlike episode. So that it actually feels
ever.
Like a children's episode.
Right.
And it's girl-friendly, too.
It's very girl-friendly.
It's an episode that women and young women like watching and young girls like watching.
But it is a genuinely good show.
It's got a great A story and a great B story. It's terrific.
And it's got Mom Mayhem.
Mom Mayhem, Kathleen Freeman.
We love
brilliant,
Kathleen
Freeman.
brilliant actress. People might remember her from Blues Brothers. She was the nun.
Oh, that's right.
Every Jerry Lewis movie.
Absolutely. Just a great character actress, and she was just terrific in this.
She was a sweet lady.
Really glad.
I'm glad we got Kathleen.
Yeah, me too.
She was great. She was perfect.
Step aside, oaf. You. Do what Mama says and you won't get hurt.
Please, ma'am. I'm only the butler.
Well, then you would know where the safe is, wouldn't you?
I didn't want this script, by the way. I thought, oh, what are you doing to me? It's my first episode. I just like, oh, I'm sunk. This is it.
But Mom Mayhem is like, she's like a Dick Tracy villain. It's like right up your alley because you're like a big Dick Tracy fan. So.
You know, it wasn't on the page at first, but you kind of talked me into it, and I really enjoy it now. But yeah, figuring out how she was going to look, that she had this motif, and then figuring out the theme of the show. I remember going, okay, there's about this egg baby, and all the kids are being surrogate parents to this egg baby, and it's contrasting with this villainess who's a mother and mistreating her kids, and the writer Hillary, who's a great writer, she kind of looked at me like, you know, I had antenna coming out of my head, and I was like, okay, all right. So it turned out.
Well, she did know her thing, but she just didn't know she knew her thing.
Yeah, that's right.
Exactly. There you go.
Out.
But
She was
anyway,
working on a subconscious meta level.
I remember us being nominated and sitting there thinking, we have to win. We have to win. Too much is riding on this.
Yeah, and we did.
I remember them calling our name and hearing this primal howl.
Was that me?
No, I realized it was me.
That's right. That was the first time you won an Emmy. That's right.
This is won an Emmy, been in a tuxedo.
That's right.
You cleaned up well, if I recall. This is Andy Dick is one of the one of the brothers here, and Mark Ralston.
Mark
the other
Ralston,
one?
yes.
Yeah.
Parts for us in a bunch of different episodes. But,
Terrific actor. The kind of guy that you'd recognize in a second if you see him, but his name may not mean something to you, but you'd know the guy if you saw him.
Shawshank Redemption is the one
Yes.
everybody remembers.
Absolutely.
And 20,000 credits.
Mom Mayhem?
A tabloid gave her that name. It was the golden age of alliteration.
So what do you want me to do? Wait till she tries to fence the ruby?
I have a feeling she'll be holding on.
Another interesting thing about this episode, to me personally, is this is the only episode of any series that I've ever done that my daughter has actually watched.
Oh, because you let her?
You know, my daughter's kind of sensitive. She's very girly, and most of the shows I work on, they're just a little too intense for her. She gets so into it that she gets, and this was years ago, and she was even much more sensitive when she was younger. But yeah, she would not be able to watch like almost any episode of any show that I'd done because they're just too intense. And even this episode, again, she was probably, I want to say she was like 6 maybe when she watched this episode, and I actually let her watch it with me. And even this episode, she was like on the edge of her seat the whole time. She was worried about the egg. She was like, what's gonna happen to the egg, Daddy? You know, she was worried that the egg was gonna fall and break and die. And but yeah.
See, it's a girl episode where it's girl friendly.
It is.
For those of you who are
Yeah.
failing.
So therefore, not exactly a big fan favorite with our mostly male audience. But I like this show.
I do
I've always
too.
liked
Oh,
it.
they were merciless when this
Oh, yeah.
aired.
I'll bet.
Absolutely.
I'll bet.
They have a tendency to not like our more comedic episodes anyways, but, you know, whatever. I don't mind doing a comedic episode as long as it's genuinely funny. So, this one actually I think is. So, and there's the Howard Groot character in the background there who looks very much like one of our co-producers on the show who's not in the room with us, so we can talk about him.
Yes, but it's exaggerated, I think, here.
Oh, yeah, a little bit.
The voice is played by an actor named Max Brooks, and Max is the son of Mel Brooks and Anne Bancroft. And there's a great story about Max where we recorded another actor. I truly don't remember who it was playing this role, and we just weren't happy with the performance. So we auditioned Max over the phone, which is a typical way of getting voice talent. You can audition him right over the phone. And he came in and recorded by himself, and he did a great job. We were very happy with the voice, kind of nerdy and, you know, but still realistic acting. And as he was leaving the studio and the configuration of that particular recording facility, he had to walk through a couple of doors that separated him from us. And during the time while he was walking through, somebody asked Bruce, how'd you like that new feature that just released? And I won't mention the name of the feature. And as Max came through the door, Bruce said, oh, it was just horrible. I hated it. Man, that was so dreadful. And Max, for months, thought we were talking about his performance.
Oh, no.
So when the character appeared in another episode and we called for him, he had his agent called us back up and say, you don't want Max because you didn't like his performance. And we're like, what are you talking about? And it killed me to think that for months, this terrific actor thought that we were talking about him when in fact it was about a movie. It had nothing to do with it. And he's terrific on this. He's just great.
And a nice guy.
They're all part of a set she stole.
So there was also Seth Green in that scene playing Nelson Nash. And I don't know, he kind of disappeared. Whatever happened to him?
Doesn't he have an animated series of his very own?
Oh, well,
I
maybe.
believe he does.
Maybe.
Well,
I thought he'd, like, maybe have, gotten like a feature part, maybe one or two.
Oh, yeah, one or two.
I just love the fact that the guy he's playing is this big, huge bully.
I know.
And he's 3 feet tall and not 86 pounds.
But we love Seth.
Oh, yeah.
He's terrific.
Seth's amazing.
His voice actually sounds exactly right for the part. I would not have,
Oh, it's perfect.
yeah.
He's
If you're thinking about casting
perfect.
that part, you wouldn't think, oh yeah, Seth would be perfect for this big jock, but he's perfect.
Seth is pretty much perfect for anything they put Seth
He's
in.
great.
He's just an amazing actor.
He really is good.
Didn't want to push it.
With these sound effects, where do we get these babies?
It's got to be a sound effect, yeah. I'm
so
sure Rob
good.
had just
They're
tons of
adorable. They're just adorable.
cute baby sound effects.
Really nice.
I love the futuristic El Camino.
Yeah, absolutely.
When are we going to get those hover cars? Because they'd be really good in Los Angeles.
I know. If we don't get him in my lifetime, I'm going to be really mad.
That was your idea, wasn't it?
The El Camino, yeah.
Funny.
Well, I think she was based on a Jack Kirby character.
Oh, that's right.
Panama-
From the Losers, right?
Yeah.
Panama Red.
That was Panama Fatty.
Oh, Panama Fatty. That's it. Excuse me.
Yeah.
Yep.
And when you did a rough sketch or you showed me the book, and then we had a hard time figuring out a design for her. Mm-hmm. And then I was thinking, okay, she's Kingpin only in a dress. And then suddenly I was like, oh, she can be cool then. You know.
She's a wall of woman.
Yeah.
She's just enormous.
That looked like a sped up scene.
What do you mean?
Sometimes in the editing room, if a sequence is animated kind of stiffly or feels like it's really slow, we can literally hit a button that plays the scene like at twice the speed.
I did not know this.
So that looks like it might
Oh,
have been.
yeah. That's exactly what we did. This is Brett Blevins. Storyboarding.
Yeah, we must somehow always have to point out when Brett Blevins is in a storyboard in the sequences. Something that's on every single commentary. Oh, definitely a Brett
You can
Blevins
tell
drawing.
by his drawings.
Yeah.
You can kind of tell by those interesting kind of kicked angles that he uses and the weird kind of foreshortening that's like a kind of a down shot, and which is difficult to draw, and he does it very well.
It translates well.
It surprisingly does translate well. Yeah.
How many animators would work on one specific show?
I don't really know.
That's Butch Lukic as one of the.
Oh, that's right.
that's
on the screen left there. That's totally Butch. It looks exactly like him.
Fellas gotta eat.
That's funny.
It even sounds like him. That's funny. But yeah, I have no idea how many animators actually work on an episode.
Why isn't he eating?
For every series, you want it to have its own special sound quality as far as the voices go. Because Batman Beyond came from the Batman series, there was some continuity we wanted to maintain, which is why we used Kevin Conroy as Bruce Wayne. But the casting is different. We use different actors. You know, there's always some standby people that we use all the time on as many series as we can. But we wanted to get a different sound. It was a more youthful cast because it took place in a high school. So you had a much more youthful group of people working on it. It had a different sense of sensitivity and stuff.
When I was called to audition for Batman, is one of those things where, you know, like all the roles out here in Hollywood, you get a call from your agent saying, you know, there's this role and would you like to go in and read for it? And I said, well, what's the role? And they said, Batman. And I went, well, yeah, yeah, of course. I'd never done any voiceover work whatsoever, so I figured there was no way that they were ever going to cast me in this show, just because it's such a small part of this industry. It's a very small world out here when it comes to voiceover acting, and it was one of those things where I went in and read thinking that there was you know, no way. I didn't have a prayer of ever getting this job, and I walked out and I remember my agent calling me. I think it was even like later that day. It wasn't very long after that I read, where she called me and left a message saying, so now you're gonna have to start figuring out what it feels like to be Batman. And I knew right then, oh, I can't believe it, I got cast as Batman. And it was, like I said, you walk into the room and there are so many incredible actors sitting there that it was really intimidating. Not to mention the fact that, you know, again, I'm saying this as if none of you are in the room. The fact that you are literally coming in with the best directors, the best producers, the best writers in all of animation in Hollywood. I mean, the original Batman series, Superman, Justice League, Batman Beyond, these are all, especially I think the original Batman series, arguably some of, if not the best cartoons that have ever been made in the history of animation. So to come into something like that where you've got these producers and these writers and these directors, it's a daunting task. It's the equivalent of going on camera and being immediately directed by Steven Spielberg to be in a $150 million movie.
You know, we talked about Kevin Conroy being the voice of Bruce Wayne. We made a decision when we decided to do the Batman Beyond series that we wanted to keep the continuity of having Kevin be Bruce Wayne, but we told him he's considerably older. We're 25 years older, 30 years older. Yeah, considerably older than when we first met him. And Kevin's voice work is so subtle, and yet it absolutely is still Bruce Wayne. It still sounds like the Bruce Wayne we know and became accustomed to, but it's clearly got lots of years of experience behind it. It's just a beautiful performance.
I remember when we were actually all sat down the first time, did the very first table read, Kevin wasn't quite as gravelly, and I think you said maybe 3 words to him, just like, can you make it a little more gravelly? And he just changed it in 2 seconds, and that was the whole series. So
he's a pro.
It was amazing. Just to watch him work was incredible.
A Juilliard-trained actor, you know, he really had a good sense of... I think he always said that he looked at Batman as Hamlet, and so gave it a whole different twist than what we might think of.
The greatest thing in the world that ever could have happened to my voiceover career, aside from working with all of you guys, was being able to sit next to Kevin Conroy every day. You could not have asked for a better voiceover person to bring you into this business, and he completely took me under his wing and really helped me out every way he could. And there were times where, you know, you guys had the mics off or whatever, where he'd pull me aside or put his arm around me, and we would sit there and talk a little bit. And my whole career changed literally because I got to sit next to that man. So for that, I will thank him forever. I remember my dad coming out and watching one of the recordings and hearing Kevin do the work and just walking out going, that might be the coolest sounding man I've ever heard.
He really is good.
Kevin is the man.
Boy, those El Caminos can move.
They sure can.
Can you imagine the fuel prices then?
Oh my God, don't even think about it. Of course, they're all hybrids in the future. They all run on garbage.
Yeah, they run on vegetable oil.
Yeah.
Used vegetable oil.
No sign of him anywhere. I've lost him.
Him? That's a doll you're talking about.
Now, one thing I've noticed, this episode seems a lot brighter than a couple of the other ones in the past. Was that done on purpose or because it's kind of a lighter episode? I mean,
Emmy bait.
Emmy bait. Very
Yeah,
good.
right.
No, I don't think we made a conscious decision, honestly, to brighten up the show.
Well, wasn't this around the time they switched to the computer color and
I
our first
don't
shows
know.
were
I
bright?
can't tell by looking at it. It is really clean. It might be a computer show.
I can't remember.
The first computer show that we did was Eyewitness, and I don't know if that was before this or not. I know it's on this disc. But
this was after that.
This was after Eyewitness, then this is a digital show. So that might account for it. Yeah, all of our color, our cell paint, quote unquote cell paint colors. We tried to match them with the new digital palette as much as possible to the old ink and paint palette, but they're a little bit brighter, a little bit chalkier. So, and also we were at that point painting the backgrounds and scanning them and sending them overseas, and it was always kind of a crapshoot whether they would actually be painting them correctly or not, because we'd have no idea whether their computers were calibrated the same way as ours were. So we might be sending like dark backgrounds, but they were seeing them as brighter, so that might be why the show is a little bit brighter. But
It always amazes me the amount of work that goes into making one of these.
oh, it's a hellish amount of work.
Well, from an acting standpoint, you go in and, you, like Andrea said, you do 2 hours, 2.5 hours, and you walk away forgetting that 1 2.5 hour session is, you know, the equivalent of 9 months worth of work for hundreds of other people.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's amazing to see that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you walk out of the recording booth going, whoosh.
Yeah, wow. That was a long lunch hour. Wow. Remember when we were doing Return of the Joker, it was like you guys called and it was like, oh, I think we're doing like, you know, starting with 2 8-hour sessions. We were all like, 8 hours? What are you kidding? Man.
We spoiled you. And it didn't even take us that long.
No.
It really didn't.
No.
You always book them a little bit longer than you need them just to cover yourself.
You sure? It's kind of cute.
Toss it.
There wasn't a lot of fighting in this, was there? There wasn't a tremendous amount
No,
of...
not a whole
much,
lot.
no.
And thank goodness, because this episode doesn't have the most fluid animation. I remember there was that one fight scene in the department store earlier, which I remember kind of like pulling my hair out in the editing room, kind of going, it's really not quite here, is it? No. But fortunately, this show is not dependent upon really good action. So
Most of this third act is not what was in the script at all. I'm looking at it. I remember.
Oh my, that probably wasn't in the script. The tongue out. Something looks like something you might have added.
Anything campy is probably my doing.
Probably.
Didn't we have some issues about how we could break glass? How we had to be careful about breaking glass?
Yes, usually on some shows. You know, the thing is, it depends upon what show you're working on and what studio you're working or what network you're working for.
Right.
For the longest time when we were on the Kids WB, we had like almost no BS&P notes. I mean, it's very little. I mean, they didn't seem to care whether we were breaking glass and doing stuff like that. We had all kinds of issues with that on the first Batman show that we did for Fox.
I
It was
remember.
like,
Yep.
yeah, anytime we had somebody going through a plate glass window, it was always a big deal. But I don't seem to remember getting too many complaints about it on this show.
I see him. Hang on.
One of the reasons that the performances are what they are is because Andrea is there, and she's one of those directors that is directing you the whole time and is really pulling you in the right direction in a positive way. I mean, you work with some directors that aren't like Andrea, where they're just kind of, you know, this is how it's supposed to be, and you got to do it like this. Where working with Andrea is just, it's a joy, and it's pretty much the luckiest gig you can get in the world when you can go in and she's directing.
Thank you very much for saying that. I have a great respect for actors, and I also know that because we're right at the beginning of the process. After the script is written, we record, and then all the rest of the process, the whole animation process, is based on what we do. So I know I've got to supply a comfortable environment and make the actors feel comfortable and get good performances from everybody, or the whole rest of the process is based on something that's not secure. So that's why I like actors. I just generally like actors.
One of the few.
They're just cattle.
I don't like us.
There's always coughing in animated series. You have to always tell the actors to turn their head away from the microphone and cough.
That's right. Turn your head.
Turn your head and cough.
cough.
Exactly. That's where that phrase came from.
And it's like every time you see somebody knocked out, you'd always have us go,
We call
on the
that
ground,
a keep
so
alive
you
groan.
knew that everybody was okay.
Keep alive groan,
That's
so
right.
that we prove we didn't kill somebody.
That guy's weapon was actually supposed to be a leaf blower. In the script, it was described as a leaf blower.
Really?
So I was like,
Why?
well, that's not very
Dangerous.
dangerous. Make it a
Threatening.
sandblaster. This is her kingpin
Okay.
kingpin moment.
You wanted to actually have her get physical with Batman.
Yeah, which
Kick
wasn't
his
in
butt.
the script either.
As I recall, this is me doing all of the efforts for
I think
her.
so, yeah.
This wasn't in the script either.
That's funny. Oh, and this is not going to be. Oh, nice shot up her dress. Yeah, not going to be easy to hold her up. That was one thing I remember. There's a line earlier in the show where Batman disses her by calling her old, and I felt so bad that we actually had to say that
that's
line
right.
to Kathleen Freeman. It's like, oh, because she's such a dear lady.
So sweet.
But
She was a good sport about it.
she was. I remember we actually recorded this episode over at Disney. Because I remember standing out on the stairwell over there, and she was telling us stories about the valley back in the old days.
Wow.
Really?
She was looking around Burbank, yeah, and saying, "Oh yeah, I remember right over there. That used to be, this and this."
Its mind needs to be stimulated too. And according to this printout, only one
there you
baby
have it.
was fully
There we go, Eggbaby, our Emmy-winning episode
Beautiful.
of Batman Beyond, a very
Beautiful.
special episode.
Yes.
Of
Go
Batman Beyond.
figure.
Yes.
Okay, thank you for watching.
Thanks for watching.
It's been
Bye.
Watch more.
Bye.